Cables, 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 cables. It is the worst part of having a video studio because there are cables everywhere. They look ugly. They're all over the place. And don't you worry, because I have an epic video for you today with all kinds of tips and tricks to organize your cables efficiently, effectively, and so you feel great about your studio. I've got 3 steps for you for success with cable management. Step number 1, lay everything out. Literally place everything in the exact position you want to use it in. Think about these things. What do you need easy access to? Literally stand in the position, feel it out, reposition things as necessary, and don't worry about the cables just yet. They're gonna be ugly, they're gonna be messy, and do that for everything you got. Part of the planning process is temporarily staging the cables. This takes longer, and so most people don't do this piece because it's a pain in the blank. But that's why I love Velcro ties. Right now, I'm using Velcro ties, doesn't matter the color because it's all temporary, to route my cables. So one at a time, I will say, well, this cable should go down this and then over to that and up here. So one at a time, I'm just adding to the cable tie or to the Velcro tie. Worth the time because it will make the final product better. But what I wanted to point out here is, again, you know, I just temporarily tied these 2 capture cards together. The Elgato HD60S Pluses I'm using on both of my cameras. I actually have a cam link coming as well for a 3rd camera. One trick that I love is using these cable holes, I'm sure there's an official term for that, and putting a cable down into it that is coming out of one of these HD60S Pluses. Now, I need it to go into here. So most people would just do it from here to here. But what I'm doing instead is I'm pushing it through, and then I'm gonna route it back up and into the hub. Now, another little trick, this is nitpicky stuff, but it's why I'm good at it. But what I'm gonna do instead is route it under all of these other cables. It's gonna be easier to connect at the end into one big bunch. And then you're getting cleanliness. If you can see through the mess, you are getting a little bit of cleanliness here because everything is routed through there and sometimes even up or down a couple of times to make sure that we're not dealing with a big mess of wires up here. Step number 2 is to plan for your party on switch. I want to make sure that I'm not putting anything on a party on that shouldn't be there. So what should be? Well, lights, mics, cameras should all come on with that flip of a switch. Computers, no. I never put a computer on a party on switch. I will turn that on manually just because oftentimes you may want to come into your studio and edit or fiddle around with something, pre-plan your show, and you don't need everything to come on. Now, the other thing that you may not want to put into a party on switch is anything that might reset its settings when unplugged. So there may be some accessories you have that reset their settings and you would have to redo every single time. Don't plug that into a party on switch. All right, now when we think about the party on switch, I've got a bit of a different situation here. I am not going to be able to create a single party on switch, but some of you may be in that same situation. Currently, I have to plug this light in here, this light in back here. Now I can actually route this, and I plan to route this over here so that these 2 switches combine to one. Then this switch is currently controlling that light up there. And then we have this over here, this making that Abby cam and some other random things. And then we have this one, and plus, then I have to pull my phone out and control the Elgato lights up there. And this light I have to control manually. I think my goal is to get myself down to 1, 2 switches and the app to control the overhead light and the side light over here.
Editor Chris here. Sorry for the interruption here, but I want to chime in real quick to let you guys know there are other options if you can't do a single party on switch, and that is smart plugs. Echo, turn on all the lights. There we go. My studio just came on. And you can also use them to your advantage to individually control them. Echo, turn off Studio 1. Echo, turn off Studio 2. Just like so. So this is an option that we're probably going to do to Luria Studio. So if we do that, we'll definitely make a video for you. Smart plugs are a great way to control your studio and other things, but we'll touch on that more in the future. Now, back to your regular scheduled programming.
So, yeah, you may be in a similar situation. If you can't get it to 1, just try and plan to minimize as much as possible. I refuse to run cables from here across my floor over here. That's why I won't wind up with a single party on switch. But again, you can make everything as simple as possible for you to turn on as much as possible. Now, there are a variety of different options for tying up your cables and organizing them better. Here are a few. We've got Velcro ties. What a big mess that is. They stick to each other, by the way. You've got zip ties, and these things are pretty freaking awesome because what happens is they actually tie into themselves, boom, and then they zip up to meet the cables, and then they'll keep it taut. Then you can just chop these off, which we'll do at the end of this video. Now I just wasted that, but that's okay. So there are different lengths, different colors, different little bitty sizes, and I would highly recommend you get a variety of different sizes, lengths, and potentially colors. Now, you want to use white on white surfaces like my wall, or white on white cables, black on black cables, black on black poles like the Varipole. So you want to match those so that they're hidden as much as possible. That's why I don't really use the color ones, but a really handy tool and tip is to actually use this color on each side of your cable. So let's say you have 2 different XLR cables in your mixer or your Rodecaster Pro like I have, then you can actually tie this to the end of each side of the cable, and then when you're trying to find where that's plugged into in the mess of cables, you'll actually not have to guess. You won't have to like finger route it and undo it potentially. You'll know exactly which cable that is. So use a variety of different colors for that purpose, and that can be really, really handy. Now, another type of zip tie that I freaking love are these zip ties that actually have a place for a screw. So when you zip tie it, you put that through here, and then you can actually screw this to the top of the desk, and that will allow you to mount it to the underside of the desk. Really, really awesome. I love these things. And these are also perfect temporary options. So these are the little just ties that come with cables that you might buy with any device that has a cable in the box. I keep a few of those just to make sure that I can use them if needed. And then also little rubber bands can be really useful for either managing and organizing your cables in a box or in a temporary setup, or even permanent if you need. And there are also all kinds of different varieties of this type of cable, like from Blue Lounge. And what they do is they're already wrapped, and then you wrap these around something, and then you use this to tie it in. There we go. I don't love dealing with these because they're a little bit more difficult, but they do look good. Now that's a look at what I'm using in this studio, but here's the kicker. I custom built this desk, and of course with custom building, you get to think about the cable management ahead of time. So as part of this desk is this wooden plank that is meant to hide the cables in this desk. So I really won't have to use anything other than zip ties, especially with cables coming out of the camera itself. These are sensitive cables, so you want to protect them at all costs. What I've done here, instead of just dropping this down to here, I'm actually moving this parallel and protecting it, again with my temporary Velcro tie here, and then I'll route it down to meet this other section of wires, or this other conglomerate of wires. That's the wrong word. Clump of wires. So you don't want any tension on those cables, so make sure that you don't drop them. No cable coming out of your camera or even lights should be taut or hanging with that heavy power supply underneath. So always make sure you're protecting them by giving them some slack and getting them parallel to the camera if you can. Now, another thing, these are the little things that I want you to think about before you finalize everything. This power supply is to this light, and I don't have room to drop it underneath. So I'm actually mounting it against this arm, this Elgato arm. And there's a light on this power brick, as there is with every power brick. But my bed is just here in the Murphy bed. And at night, I don't want to see a green bright light, which is what I was seeing when I first mounted this. So I turned it around. It's at least better than seeing a bright green light in my bed. Same thing with this Elgato Air light that I have mounted up here. We don't want it to be taut and tight. So I am using this wing nut to route the cable above it so that it's just following this path. Make sure that there's slack, but also hide it as much as possible. So what I want to do is get this cable up kind of on top of this pole as much as possible so that when I zip tie it, it will not be seen from down below. So this brick for the Elgato light is kind of bulky. So you're gonna have those types of things, which can be really annoying. So I have room up here to actually drop it. But because it is a little bulkier, what I've decided to do is not drop it to where it can go, but to wrap the cable so that I'm taking up some of the slack and then hiding as much as you can hide this whole brick and extension cable up at the very top, because our eyes aren't really drawn to the ceiling. So I'm trying to shift things to where your eyes aren't going to be drawn. With this cable, we'll hide it along so that it's not just sticking out in the middle of anywhere. It's kind of hiding behind things. So that's a little nifty trick to make it not seem like there are cables everywhere. So hopefully that helps. Now we have this light up here and it's running very ugly, is that a word? Down the wall into this kitchen plug or outlet. And I don't want that. First of all, I have other things that need to be plugged in there. So what we need to do is plan it out, think about the length that we need to get it down here so that I can plug it in with the rest of the gear. So comes the tape measure. Literally, I want you to measure things out. So this brick, I'm going to keep here because if you look at this is actually just this length and it's not something I can change. So I definitely don't want it there. So I'm just gonna prop that up here. Now we've got this length, which is just too short. What I would like to do is run it down this wall right here and then come over and down. So I will literally tape this to the wall, the cable to the wall, to make sure, or you could use staple guns as well For me, I'm not gonna use staple guns. I'm gonna use tape, invisible tape. And then we'll measure all the way down there so that we know exactly what cable length we need. Add that up and find the cable length closest to that. What I have done and what you can do, and I highly, highly, highly suggest doing this, is order a whole bunch of cables, a whole bunch of power adapters, different lengths, because the beauty is you can return all of the ones that you don't use. So that's why we have a whole bunch of cables here. And then you can go to the process of taping, staple gunning, zip tying, which we'll get to in a minute. Headphones are probably the worst type of cable to deal with in your studio because they are so needed out here. Like, you can't just hide them away. So when you're interviewing somebody or you wear headphones for your normal production, you want to manage them as best as you can. And one way that you can do that is with these cable ties that I showed you earlier that have a screw hole. And so underneath your desk, you can screw that up here and get a hook, just a simple hook at a hardware store, or you could just screw a hook into your desk if you can do that. And then you can just essentially hook the headphones wrapped up in like a little ball on that hook, and then you're good to go, and that'll kind of tidy it away while you're not using it, and then just boop, there you go. Now on this desk, because my living room is over here and I don't really want to see this, I'm gonna look into some trays that Chris mentioned and see if I can find something pretty to hide them away from view, but for now, that's my best trick for you. New day, new mic. Link in the description. All right, so I talked about different zip ties, right? Or using, sorry, those are Velcro ties, or using different colored zip ties on your cables. I have actually chosen to go a completely different route, and that's paint markers. So this is a permanent thing, but I'm finishing up everything, and when I have a cable that I want to identify from power to power, right? So from the source to the power brick, I actually decided to go this route. So I've chosen the red paint marker, and I've put a little dot right here at the beginning of the source, and then follow that down, make sure you got the right cable, and then here at the bottom, well, is it where I can actually visually see that. So just putting a dot, and then you can easily see which cable it is you're attempting to swap out, unplug, plug back in, troubleshoot, etc., etc. Now I did actually start by not doing a dot and actually do a line around the cable so that it's visible on all sides, but I didn't really like how that looked. I preferred the dot look. So again, your choice, right? You can go a bazillion different ways with the marking. I'm actually really digging the dot colored paint markers. I like it. It's time to zip everything down and go permanent. Now, all of the cables are going to be hidden inside of this shelf, but I still want to keep them as organized as possible. This is one of my favorite cable organizers, is this mesh that rolls up onto itself. It is the cleanest and easiest to work with and adjust whenever you need to have extra cables going in. Boom. Oh well. Everything's in. It's hidden. Yay! With the exception of this needs to get cut down because This shelf had to get extended to be larger to hold the amount of cables I had, but this is supposed to go here in the corner. It just needs to be cut down a little to hide those cables coming down. And then we're done. I mean, it's beautified. Yay! Now, once you get your studio set up and all of the cables managed and beautified, then you need software. You need to be able to actually run your production, whether it's live video, recorded video for YouTube videos, webinars, you name it. My favorite Mac streaming software is Ecamm Live, and I use it for everything I do. You can get a free trial and free training program at livestreamingpros.com/ecamm. It allows you to take your production to the next level, to get really pro looking. I mean, you have pro looking cables and studio. Now you need a pro looking video, right? So that's how you do that. I just want to give a special shout out to them for making this series possible. If you haven't watched the rest of the series, the studio build from start to finish and everything in between, including all of the gear, everything that I have in here, check out the rest of the playlist here. It's the entire build out series, everything from start to finish, from each individual piece of gear I use in this studio, all of it. So enjoy your binge watching.